Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, I was listening to the other recording and I was like surprised at how much my volume varied. Like sometimes I would be way too loud, sometimes I would be hardly audible, so wasn't too great. All right, is this working?
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Cool, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, so I figured, while we talk about stuff, I'll, do something maybe on the map. I don't know. Who knows? Or zip around like a maniac again. I seem to be pretty good at that. Um, so either way, but yeah, the main thing I'm planning to do is just go over um stuff, kind of outline stuff like this, answer any questions in case anything is unclear or still ambiguous or there are other things I could expand more into detail and things of that nature. So that's pretty much the main thing I wanted to do. I guess we could start off if anybody had any specific questions that they were confused about, maybe about this, or just anything they wanted to be expanded upon or the like. If not, that's totally cool. I'll kind of
So are
just
you completely removing windmills, or are they just going to be super rare? Or I know you
uh,
said you were doing this tier-based solar panels, but will windmills still be a thing?
yeah. So windmills. Let me see over here. Yeah. So like in this section, we basically state that windmills and large furnaces, possibly something else as well, which I won't confirm right now, but at least large furnaces and windmills, they are still going to be in the server. They're
Okay.
just going to be, yeah, they're just going to be rare drops, and they're also going to have a deployable upkeep cost to
Okay.
upkeep them. So, because we didn't want to necessarily just entirely remove them, because as I said somewhere in the wall of text, they do um, impact performance, but it's a little bit less than players might think, and
Right.
it's mostly when they're used like in bulk. I mean, the problem is that they tend to be used in bulk. That's kind of the thing. Like
Right.
they tend to be used as much as possible. And not only that, but then they tend to be used kind of like as high as possible, which also adds to the entity count of the bases, because they get built up pretty high, and you have to waste building resources to get them that high, and it just becomes kind of a performance drain for no real reason when essentially what's it called? Solar panels can do the same exact thing, and we've confirmed that they have basically no performance impact, like
Gotcha.
virtually whatsoever. So
Just wanted to confirm if they're like staying or going, or if we were fully like moving to the tier-based solar panels. Just to plan for my farm, the warehouse that I'm gonna plop down somewhere.
yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's actually one of the things that would be useful for me to answer. Like if people had questions regarding like logistics they're trying to plan for the upcoming map, that would be good to ask. But yeah, so windmills will be a thing. They'll just be much rarer. They'll have deployable upkeep. Same thing with large furnaces. So pretty much players will expect to see them just yeah, a far greater scarcity. Solar panels will
Perfect.
be taking care of most of the electricity. As I also said in the post, we might be doing test generators as well. Possibly, it's not. We haven't confirmed that yet. I mean, that item is really like an admin item. It's not
They're
even.
OP.
Yeah, I mean, they're not really meant to be used by players. They're not
That's
even
just
like.
constant power. Like they're
Yeah,
super
exactly.
OP.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, you can hide them so they're indestructible essentially,
Yeah.
as opposed to windmills. I mean, even the item itself literally, um, has a description of like a mailbox, I think. So it's like it's clearly Facepunch didn't, bother even trying to integrate them properly. But yeah, that's how electricity will mainly work.
Gotcha.
Um, Solar panels are going to become like, as mentioned, custom items with different varieties. They're going to actually be biome based, which is something we didn't mention in the write up. So there's going to be like Arctic solar panels, arid solar panels, and you essentially won't be able to place an arid solar panel in the Arctic. It just
Got to
simply
use
prevents
tier,
you.
the same tier.
Hmm.
Tier based, we're not going to prevent players from placing tier based solar panels like in a different tier than the solar panel is. The
Okay.
the the tier based solar panels really are just about how good they are. Um,
Gotcha. Okay. Sounds
yeah,
good.
yeah. So
Kind of a quick question along the same lines. So as we're planning out for the map overhaul in our bases and figuring out kind of our energy sources, will the tier-based solar panels be in at map overhaul launch, or will we still want to use windmills effectively during launch initially, at least until the solar panels are implemented from a tier-based setup?
yeah, so that's a good question to ask. So basically, what we're planning to do is we are going to make sure that everything in this write up, I think everything, I'm pretty sure, literally everything, pretty sure, well, territory control I mentioned is not going to be included, but everything else that is mentioned in here, we are planning to get it in for the map overhaul launch patch. That wasn't originally the plan. I mean, in general, this was planned for way down the road, like later in the year, possibly even for the rebrand launch. But yeah, with players repeatedly um, bringing the performance concerns to our attention and a lot of things of that nature, let's say, to just summarize that, it just became clear that it's something that needs to launch now. Otherwise, we're just setting ourselves up for a bunch of problems, which could take away from like the very, very big server changes that are coming, just really kind of detract from the experience. And not only that, but like a lot of these changes would be actually kind of hard to make retroactively. That's the thing. Like a lot of these changes really do need to launch with a map, with like a new map. Um, which is why like they were originally planned for most likely the rebrand launch, which is going to be a new map. But that's like I said, that's quite a bit away. Um, so because like if we for instance made if we made windmills all of a sudden rare and stuff like that, you know, if the map was already in existence, then we would have to kind of like wipe the existing windmills, and that wouldn't be enjoyable for anyone. And things of that nature, things like other things like that that we'd have to do. And obviously, we're not trying to ever, do any kind of item wipe, even like a soft wipe or whatever. We're just trying to, if we make big sweeping economic changes like that, we really will try to make them in the transition to a new map, so that like starting from the very beginning when people rebuild, um, it will just kind of be like the new status quo.
Okay, well, I have a question that might expand upon that a little bit. And back to the windmills, with them kind of becoming a rare drop, if let's say we have 20 windmills in a chest right now, with a new map overall launch, are we going to get them back and be able to place them?
Yes. So okay. So what we're planning to do with that, there are going to be certain things that aren't going to carry over exactly, and the reason for that is because when certain rarities of items change this drastically, like for instance, like windmills are going to be like a really quite a rare drop. They're not going to be too common at all. They're going to be extremely valuable. They're going to be extremely hard to kill. They're going to be a big alignment hit to destroy them. So they're going to be pretty exclusive items. Um, so that doesn't really match up anymore at all with the ability, for instance. for the amount of windmills that are currently in circulation, and not only that, but windmills are obviously craftable at the moment. So
Mhm.
that that doesn't translate. So what we are going to do, we're going to replace. We've developed a plugin for these kind of extreme situations where we're going to replace certain rare items with kind of like a compensation for the loss of those items. Um, and that's we don't that's not something we're going to do very often. It probably will only happen, well, not probably, will definitely only happen um, with uh, with map transitions, which really we only have, like, after this one, we only have one, maybe two planned. And the second one planned is going to be a lot more minor. So there's really, I mean, obviously this is subject to change, anything and everything depends on how things actually go, of course. But in terms of what we're planning, there's only really after this map change, one big map change remaining and then one like smaller one remaining. So when we do that, if certain items just like have a completely different rarity than they currently do, and I mean like not just like a minor difference, I mean like like what we're doing now where windmills are just going to be super ultra rare items and right now they're craftable, like it doesn't get more different than that setup.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
in that situation, we're just going to replace all windmills with a compensation, which we are still figuring out exactly what that compensation will be. Um, and that's going to be the same. The same will be true of large furnaces.
So I have a whole vault full of literally both of those items. So
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Same.
absolutely. So
just
yeah,
preparing for the wipe because I don't know like if they were gonna be there, if you're gonna take them away. So I literally got a whole vault full of them.
yeah, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like as much as we'd love to allow that to happen, it just it would really defeat the purpose of what we're trying to do, right? Like the purpose of what we're trying to do is reduce windmills, not like not allow certain amount to be kind of stockpiled and then deployed. It would just go against what we're trying to accomplish. So
Can you
because
post a master list of what's going to be compensated and like so I can like go through my vault and be like, oh, he's going to take away that, he's going to take away that, and make room for stuff for like store more high quality, store more fuel type deal.
sure, I mean
Please
I
and thank you.
absolutely. So we will do that as we get a little closer. Um, the thing is, at the moment, off the top of my head, the only thing we're planning to do that with, this might change. This might change, but the only thing off the top of my head we're planning to do that with is windmills and large furnaces. Um, yeah, there's one or two more items we're considering doing that with, but it will definitely be for sure large furnaces and windmills. Um, and yeah, we will post a list for that. In terms of uh,
Perfect.
that actually could be a good segue into the question that I'm sure many people are wondering about, which has to do with what is our timetable, at this point, right? Um, and the answer to that is we were in a pretty good spot for launching things. However, because we are gonna get everything in, everything in this post, which as you guys can see, this is kind of like this is a lot of things that we have to do that we are actively doing. It's a lot of custom things that we need to get in. So because of that, we're not going to give like a specific time because it would be pointless because we don't know how long it's going to take. The answer would just be as soon as we possibly can get the performance stuff in because a lot of the other stuff is pretty much in a very advanced state and choosing to get all the performance the everything in this post in the map overhaul patch, it just simply it's just a lot to do. So once that's done, that's it. That's the last thing in our way for launching. So it might be anticlimactic a bit, but yeah, we're not going to say a specific date. That doesn't mean that that's. I guess I should also state that that doesn't mean, it's like April or something like that. It's nothing like that. Nothing like that. It's absolutely as early as we possibly can make it. Hopefully, if I were to give even like an unofficial, and this is unofficial, unofficial ballpark, um, late February would be best case scenario. I mean, late February isn't even that far away at this point. That's like 2 weeks away at this point. Um, the March forced update is probably more realistic, which would actually be convenient if we could get that in by then, because if we got it in at the end of February, for instance, we would then have to do a map restoration like a couple days after that, whatever, like 6 days after that. And it's always preferable not to have to do that if we can just not restore the current map, because it's always just a hassle to get that done, and it's a lot of things we have to a lot of time we have to spend to do that. So if we launched it on that date, on the March 4th wipe, that would kind of kill two birds with one stone. So that's the current soft estimate, which is unofficial. I would love if we could make that date, and I hope that we will. I hope that we really will make that date. But I won't say that that's the official date, just because I don't want to give any more dates and be proven wrong again and again. So
Sounds good.
Question. How you don't have a system of asking questions? Could you please, if possible, zoom out on the map as a whole? I'm just kind of curious to see. I don't know if you can render that far. Like if you could just zoom, like yes, like
yeah,
that.
yeah, this actually
Just
can't go any further than this. This is a
no, no,
zoomed out.
that's fine. That's great. It's just to get a little bit because right now, as an example, all of the streams of potable water has been evaporated, and it's totally understandable earlier game players, And I just wanted to see how many rivers, and it looks like there's quite a lot more.
Oh, yeah, you can actually check our Discord. Where is it? It would be in here. Um, it would be this map is very, very slightly outdated at the moment because certain things have changed. Like this arena is no longer there. But in
Okay.
terms of the rivers are the same. So
Oh,
if
okay.
you go into map overhaul section right here,
Hmm.
well, there's actually, like kind of a short, or maybe not too short at this point. I was going to say short novel of information in here. It's kind of added up at this point. But yeah, this map is like 90% accurate, and it's 100% accurate regarding the rivers.
All right, much appreciated. Thanks. And another question, if you don't mind, is there
Absolutely.
going to be any kind of because right now obviously this doesn't show like the oil rig. Is there going to be any like side islands outside of that square, or is this square the determined land mass?
Right. Okay. So this was something that we covered in a previous stream. How our map works with kind of Rust limitations is that let me see. Oh, it's lagging, I think. There it goes. Okay. So this that you see here, like these borders, these edges,
Hmm.
this is as far. It would be easier to show you if I was in game on the actual map. Unfortunately, I don't have that up at the moment. Um, but essentially, these borders are as far as you can take terrain in
Right.
Rust.
So it's a world border basically.
Um, well, that's the thing. It's a little more complicated than that because we did a lot of research into what kind of limitations we have to work with
Hmm.
when we were creating a new map, and because obviously this is meant to be an MMORPG server,
Right.
so we're trying to squeeze every ounce of space we can out of it.
Hmm.
Um, And in the beginning, that is going to make the map most likely too big for the initial player base we're going to have on it. Which is okay. It's something that we just have to accept for a little while. But more to the point, yeah, this is as far as terrain can literally go. You cannot put
Hmm.
terrain further than this. And on like every single Rust map that exists, pretty much, nobody does this. Like out here would be just ocean,
Hmm.
and the actual landmass is well, actually I can correlate this, like, so if you look at this map, which is our current map, right?
Hmm.
So these grids, this is where terrain goes.
Yes, I know. I understood.
Right,
It makes sense.
right. So
Right.
to add to that, though, what I wanted to say in terms of that being the world limit, it's actually not the world limit, though. The way it works is there's an additional 7 grids, like roughly 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, roughly around this far. You can put things into the ocean that are not terrain, and that's what we are. That's what we've already done with Tier 4 monuments. They're all out past the grids. They don't have a grid, and we're also going to be doing that with sea content, like underwater labs. And yeah, we have a lot of sea content planned. That's going to
Awesome.
be completely outside the grids. Yeah.
Another question. I don't know if you've
Sure.
already covered it in a previous one. As an example, if you were to see the heli, it is a world boss. However, the complexity and the difficulty of it isn't what you would consider in other RPG a true world boss. It, typically, you have
Mhm.
more. How could I explain it? More difficulties, simply put. Will there be maybe this is just an idea, but will there be some type of multi-stage actual like dungeon style?
Right. Okay. So um, there's kind of that I could probably respond to that question for the next hour or so.
Okay.
And people who are used to me going on about things know that like that's an actual threat that I could follow up on. So uh, so without actually doing that, I'll just say that I'll say that the current world bosses are kind of relative to the difficulty of normal bosses, whereas like a normal NPC boss has a certain difficulty, and the world boss obviously has like quite a significantly higher difficulty. But you are
Hmm.
correct, of course, that if you were to call the world boss in the classical MMORPG sense, where like you need like a group
A
or maybe
hundred.
multiple groups or oh yeah,
Hmm.
something grand, something grandiose in terms of
Guild
player numbers.
Wars, as an example, right? You literally
Right,
have to have that chunk map full, and even then, the boss HP is so slowly going down. But the
right.
loot is so worth it, which brings multiple people for the same cause. People who typically would not work together.
Right. Right. So okay. So the short-ish, as much as I can manage, answer to that is that one thing that we're going to be having with the map overhaul patch is NPC scaling. So the way that works is like the shortish answer again, is that and like a solo player can attack an NPC, and that's the base difficulty, the default difficulty the NPC will have. Then, for every additional player who attacks that NPC, who's in the same team as the other player who attacked it, and we did make it that you have to be on the same team because otherwise people could grief each other by like shooting an NPC from far away just
Hmm.
to scale it up, things like that. So
Right.
when you're on the same team and you attack an NPC, it is going to start scaling in difficulty for every single player, or rather, additional player after the first that has attacked it. And that concept is going to eventually not. It's not going to work that way in the beginning of the map overhaul because we have not incorporated that mechanic into world bosses because it's like a whole different concept. Because our ability to create custom AI for NPCs is different than World Boss AI. Um, and we are, at the moment, we're using a kind of like custom made version of Vanilla Rust, a World Boss AI, like Bradley and Heli. For example, our Bradley never stops moving, so it can never get bottlenecked. So it's a lot more challenging to face because of that reason. You can't just like get it in a position where you can just hide behind a rock and just like take it out like that. Um, but nonetheless, that AI still, the core of that AI is still Face Punch, Vanilla Rust. So when we get around to making fully custom World Boss AI, those will also scale with players attacking it. So eventually, if a single player attacks the patrol helicopter and 8 players attack the patrol helicopter, it's going to be like nightmarishly more difficult in in uh, in difficulty and also in loot and EXP.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
That's the
fair
kind of
enough.
short answer to that.
No,
Fair
that's fine.
enough.
That's appreciated.
Ben, you done with your questions?
I am. I am.
Good, good. Adon, allow me here just to thank you the great server and really well done concept. But we were wondering if you noticed we recently joined your server, and we were wondering what's the play style of the game. You guys built this RPG system, and there is a vision behind it. So, can you let us know what is the gameplay you imagine your community play on the server?
So you mean what are we trying to create like longer term, or do you mean our in our words of what the server is supposed to play like, or something like
Yes,
that?
yes, yes.
Okay, right. So, well, I mean, once again, as I've said to the as a disclaimer I gave to the previous question, I could probably talk about that for a lot more than just 1 hour, actually.
Well,
But
briefly.
sure, sure. So the short answer to that would be, well, we are trying to create a kind of as much of an MMORPG experience as we can, taking into consideration that we are working within Rust's limitations, and we essentially want it to be a mix between a social sandbox with emergent gameplay, which is to
Mhm.
say that a lot of the experiences that players have are very unpredictable. Because eventually, like at the moment, we have a pretty varied RPG system at the moment, but
Mhm.
this system is going to massively expand. Like if you look at these categories,
Even
um,
more?
oh yeah, yeah. I mean, like
Okay.
these town categories, to give you an example, these are eventually going to become skill categories as well, and each talent is going to be kind of like its own sub skill. So so that plus the inclusion of like traits and abilities and things of that nature, um, and in general how we're going to expand on the current systems like attributes and so on and so forth. So what that means is that, long story short, characters are going
Uh,
to be extremely specialized, extremely dynamic and specialized and unique. And not only that, but you're not going to be able to just like get to level 50 or 70 or whatever, and then respec into a different thing that you haven't
mhm.
already progressed through, because skills and attributes are going to become something that you have to progress individually and
Nice.
and
Nice.
manually. Um, so that means that like if you want to be a gatherer or a crafter, you can't just use a respec and switch between it all. You have to actually play that play style and progress through it to the maximum level, which is not going to be necessarily a quick thing to do. I will say quickly a disclaimer that for anybody concerned about any EXP you've already earned, that is going to be retroactive. So any EXP already earned is going to be when we implement the skill system, as well as when we expand the attribute system. Um, you are going to be able to invest skill and attribute points based on what you've already earned. So no one's going to lose any EXP they already earned. But in any
Amazing.
case, going back to that, players are going to be highly specialized, and that's how we kind of see these very individualistic characters interacting with each other in a
Nice.
game world that is also equally as dynamic and kind of has a lot of like niches to offer, and that's going to create this kind of like social sandbox emergent gameplay. But yeah,
Wonderful. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay,
So kind
so
of
this,
like, sorry.
sorry, go ahead.
I was just
go
gonna
ahead.
say, so kind of like if you need like big repair work done, you would like find a person who specializes in
Right.
that kind of stuff. So like everyone would work together.
Yeah,
Exactly. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
what we were thinking about, by the way, we are the Hobo clan, and
Oh, I
here
keep
on
seeing
behalf
your
of.
stuff.
So, you just noticed that we are a large clan, and yes, we are looking for such concept, and we like that what you guys are building. But we have some limitations when it comes to the clan member
Size.
limits. So, 16 member
I
now
think we're capped
limit,
at
right?
16. Yep.
Yeah. So, how can we fix this? Like, make it even more? but we will empower the gameplay you guys try to design.
We need a bigger
So,
server.
well,
Maybe
so
have two different clans combine, like alliance with another, but like you'd have Hobo and then maybe like Hobo one or whatever
But the
for.
Yeah,
problem is
we were
that is you
thinking
cannot
about
share
it.
the resources, like the XP and whatever.
Yes, and we cannot access each other bases, and we like to build village styles. If you noticed.
You can't go
Yeah.
out as two separate groups and both bring back EXP. It's going to be one group or the other. So you can't
Right.
really
Yeah.
go out as like larger groups. We're all stuck to the 8-mans.
Perfect. We are fine with the 8-man, and even if it's going less to 5, it's okay. But the tag, it's the clan tag. Like, why there is limitation on that clan members? Why not to
Technically,
be 50?
right. Well,
yeah.
okay. So there's quite a lot of reasons behind why we settled on 16. I at this point I won't give the disclaimers about the 3 hour or 10 hour response times, but I'll just say that in general, every answer I give now is going to be like deeply like summarized. I could say a lot more than I will say, but just for the sake of time, the major points behind that is because there's there's a lot to consider here, right? Like we understand that players want to play with each other in as large scale as possible. Um, the thing is though, we still have not figured out what is going to be the maximum player count on the server. We are like when it finally releases one day in a full launch, we are hoping for at least 160, which would be right now would be like 10 alliances that could be online, like full alliances online at the same time. We are hoping for 160 at a minimum. We hope that it could be even higher than that. We're really not sure what will happen with that because we have a lot more performance metrics we need to test. A lot of that has to do with literally um, as our player base expands, we need to just see how the performance goes. As more and more players are concurrently on the server. So with that said, we have to take into consideration the reasonable limitations of what the server is eventually going to have as maximum population. And if it's going to have 160, um, even 16, a lot of players would or at least could make a valid case that even 16 could be considered a lot because the thing is we can't just take into consideration large clans or alliances or like multi-gaming communities and so on and so forth. We also have to take into consideration that there are a lot of players who are going to play on the server who are solo, who are duo, who are trio and so on and so forth. They're smaller scale, so it can be intimidating for them to have to try to compete game mechanic wise with clans that are vastly much bigger than them. And people have brought this up. Some people have taken issue even with the 16 limit, saying that that's way too high, considering that
Mm,
a lot of servers have like 8 as like super top end, and we have 16. So we're trying to we tried to find a reasonable balance between the server having small scale gameplay, large scale, medium scale, and like alliance versus alliance gameplay. Like war declarations, for instance, are kind of meant to be. They're like kind of designed specifically to be alliance versus alliance.
Mhm.
So that's kind of the big like a big dramatic event. What
right.
war declarations are meant to be. So to kind of say the main point, it's really like we tried to find a number and just pick a number that we could settle on that would be reasonable, a reasonable balance for like large clans, alliances, but also smaller scale, while also still being unsure of the maximum server size that we're going to be dealing with. If by some miracle, like if by some
Mhm.
miracle we could have like a 300 person server, I kind of doubt it, but if by some miracle we can optimize the performance and figure out all kinds of hacks and whatever, well, what I mean by hacks. I hope.
Then
Um,
then you have to start to think
Optimizations.
about limitations very soon, my friend.
Optimizations.
There are
yes.
large farms, man. We cannot pass next to them. It's like when you just pass by, you crash.
Well,
Well,
exactly.
Yeah.
well,
Too big farms.
but here's the thing about the limitations, right, of sizes and the war system. One thing that could be done theoretically is that a clan that has between a set amount and a set amount, so let's say between 1 and 4 members, can declare on anybody above. Between 4 and whatever can declare to lower and a little bit higher. And then you get my point. So if you set it like that, you could set it all the way to like 50. And so people who have more than 30, they will only be able to attack anyone who has 25 or above.
Well,
And
nobody's
this
thinking
would
about attacking, but also you can limit the war declaration on T3 or T4 level areas, maybe.
whatever as well. So there is ways I would say that you can avoid lower player count groups to fear the fact that there's, let's say, a 50-member clan, because that 50-member clan will never be able to wage war against them if a system such as that exists. And in other games, there is literally, if you're above 10 levels of another player, you cannot attack them.
Sure, sure. So, well, okay. So a couple things I'll say to kind of steer the conversation a bit is like that is really a very open-ended discussion, and that can kind of go very far. Um, like regarding how war declarations will work, the concept of large-scale alliances, how the role they play in war declarations. I will also just briefly, specifically address that by saying that the war declaration system is actually very, how could you say? You could call it quite incomplete at the moment because it's actually based on territory control, which is a system that is not even on the server yet. Because right now war declarations kind of like um, if you uh, if you declare against a certain clan, you choose a number of tiles and you attack those tiles. You attack clan and alliances within those tiles. But
Really?
eventually, it's going to be based on territory control, where you're going to actually attack tile by tile specifically, not just like three and like clan targeted. Um, it, that kind of might sound a little confusing. There's a lot to say about that, but I will say that this particular live stream isn't really about that at the moment. And just for the sake of addressing the main purpose of what this live stream is for, I'll say that in the future, I mean, we're going to have many of these live streams where we are going to address every conceivable topic that is of concern to the community, and
Awesome.
war declarations and like large scale gameplay, like group limitations and so on and so forth. All of that's going to be addressed. So I just want to make sure you guys know we're certainly not glossing over that. And I also will say that a lot of the mechanics that are eventually going to end up on the server in their finalized form is of course going to be based on the feedback that we get, from you. Because a lot of our ideas, they get on the server, and then we kind of like observe how they actually work in reality. Because there's a difference between the reality of mechanics and like how you envision them. Um,
Between concept and actual reality.
Yeah, exactly. So, that's really true of any creative project or possibly everything in life, actually. So,
Yeah.
in any case, so yeah, that is something we are going to very much talk more about. So, I did want to steer the conversation more in the direction of of the of performance, really, because that's the main not to say that we can't talk about anything else in this live stream, but the main purpose is to really discuss these changes and to make sure everybody's on the same page with these changes because they are kind of pretty, fairly big changes, and we want to make sure everyone understands how they're going to work, why we're doing them, and so on and so forth.
Dune, with that being said, one of the questions I had regarding the performance mechanic changes was the bracketed upkeep.
Yeah.
Most of us, probably the
It's
larger
real
clans
quick.
and maybe even the smaller clans have, built out bases on a build server, and we're trying to track what that upkeep's going to look like on the new map. With the bracketed upkeep coming out, Will there be a system to tell us, what that upkeep's going to look like? Are you going to post, kind of what those brackets look like, or is that for us to find out as we're building? Will that be kind of a UI built into the server? Could you expand a little bit on kind of how bracketed upkeep's going to work and how we're going to monitor that?
Sure. So right now we have linear upkeep where for every single building block that you have, um, your upkeep just increases completely linearly. That's actually something we weren't too sure about that, about doing it that way. We decided to do that because we wanted to kind of diverge from how Facepunch does it a little bit, and kind of see and kind of like build upon the foundation. Because the thing is that we want we want to understand and see how everything performs based on systems we create. And because our upkeep system is entirely custom, like we try to make it look as close as we can to how it actually looks in Vanilla Rust, but it is an entirely custom system in terms of the costs, in terms of the costs we can create for it. Um, so with that said, right now it is entirely linear. The bracketed upkeep is a system, however, that does exist in Vanilla Rust, and it exists. We, now in kind of retrospect and with a little more time passed, we do see the wisdom of why Facepunch implemented that. And it's not like we were, we thought Facepunch did the wrong, like a wrong decision with that, but we needed to kind of see it for ourselves. And the reason why they have bracketed upkeep is really specifically because the major uh, influencer of performance is this. And so when you have like huge bases, especially when they end up kind of in close proximity to one another, you're forcing the client to render so many entities that your FPS is going to drop. It doesn't matter what computer you're running. It's just a limitation of the game, of the engine, and so on and so forth. So bracketed upkeep is a system which is going to work where, as stated here, when you reach certain thresholds of building block counts, you're going to have an increased multiplier. So, that's already written here, so you probably already know that. In terms of how we're going to be documenting that, um, in the first system, we're not creating a UI for it because I mean, like, we are trying to limit how much dev work we're trying to do, or I guess like extra dev work, I should say, because we are trying to get this out like as soon as humanly possible. Because I mean, at this point, the map has been delayed multiple times. We absolutely, it's the last thing we ever want to do to delay this patch. It's not our intention to delay it. We only are delaying it when we have absolutely no choice. So because of that, we're trying to get it out as soon as possible. And therefore, extra perks like kind of UI-based things like that are not going to be in. We'll do our best to kind of document that um, either on the Discord or we might get it into the unofficial wiki that our
I'm on
superhero
it.
wiki hero is on it. Yeah, yeah,
I'll
there you
get
go.
the spreadsheets out.
There,
Yeah,
there you have it.
I think with outside of a UI, I do not I completely agree. Instead of
Yeah.
building out a brand new UI, just having that in the Discord or the unofficial wiki would be good, especially for us who've kind of already started building out our base on a build server. It's just a really easy way to see, hey, if that puts us in too far of a bracket, we might want to look at downscaling or,
Mm.
vice versa.
In
Yeah.
regards to
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
skills, real quick, you made it quite clear that the skill system will change drastically. So the implant system, I just want to make sure I understand correctly. I'm going to use RuneScape as an example because I'm pretty sure everybody here has either known or has played it. RuneScape, you could grind very tediously a specific category. You could, spend literally hundreds of hours and you would be a specialist in that specific category. Now, this is what it sounded like you were saying. So The level itself, you will be then able to give attributes. My two questions are: is there going to be a level cap in that sense? Because it would mean that technically speaking, somebody could grind a very long time, level up that one specialty. So would that mean that the person needs to then use different implants, then grind the level again to become a specialty and something else? Or would they be able to use the same character, grind a specialty, and then go to a different job and grind that specialty? But if there's a level cap, that means that they won't be able to grind that new specialty if they don't get points to attribute.
Sure, sure. Okay, so as I kind of alluded to a little bit ago, um, these kind of like more specific individual aspects, for instance, like the RPG system and other things of that nature, we really are gonna like it's hard for me to it's hard for me to give a short answer, both because I guess of just my personality, but also because there's no real short answer for that. There's so many there's so many like things involved with how the RPG system is going to evolve ultimately. So I'll attempt to kind of briefly say that. So because per account um, per Rust account, we made the implant system so that you can have one character, but have kind of like all these like implants kind of represent the ability to have multiple character on one account because we can't unlike other MMORPGs, you can't just like go to a character screen and like switch it to a different character. So with that said, we are going to try and keep everything as self-contained as possible on that one account. We're not going to like make a system so that players have to feel inclined to have like 10 Steam accounts, Rust accounts.
Mhm.
So with that said, a player will be able to have every single skill, and there will be an utterly enormous amount of skills by the time we're further along. You'll be able to have every single possible skill unlocked and leveled to max. The same is true of every attribute. You'll be able to max every attribute. However, you will only be able to utilize a certain aspect of those skills and those attributes per implant. And the way that's going to work, once again, somewhat briefly to say, is that as you level up, you're going to increase your skill cap, your skill point cap, and your attribute point cap. And then, based on the attributes and skills that you've skilled up and leveled up, you're going to be able to allocate um, those skills and attributes on that particular implant based on your cap. So while you could over time, for instance, skill up every single skill in the game. Let's pretend like there's like 300 skills or something, right? You could skill up every single one of them to 100. I mean, to be fair, that would take quite a while. So disclaimer, but if you manage to do that, you could simply just switch between implants and um, and just allocate those skills, and you can kind of create 11 different characters because you have one main implant plus 10 implants
Mhm.
unlockable. So you could have 11 different characters, and you that's how that would work. To kind of summarize that.
Okay, so basically the level cap will be the cap of level that require for the required unlocking of all the attributes, basically.
For attributes and skills.
Yes,
Yes, yes.
because you need to level up to get those points, so therefore the max level will be a accumulation of all the. Yeah. Okay, that makes sense to me. So that's great. Thanks.
Uh, yep, no problem. Yeah, I mean, in general, everything in the RPG system, the higher level you get, the more things you will unlock, traits, abilities, birth signs. I mean, everything. So, and then the premise is just you switch between characters, like highly specialized characters with
Mhm.
implants. That's kind of the most basic way to put it. So, yeah.
All right, sounds good. So basically, you unlock everything, and then with the implants, you can just select what you want.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
And the difference between now and later is that now you can you have everything unlocked through just respecking, but that's going to change.
Right.
That's going to entirely change. Yeah.
Okay. Great. Thanks.
Yep, no problem. Um, Old school. I did want to I feel like, did you feel like I answered your question fully? I just wanted to make sure that I did.
Yeah, I think you did, but it kind of and I don't want to take over the conversation here, but I think it sounds like you're going to look at some way of posting those upkeep brackets, which opened up another, I guess, question for like think of like the Spectres clan. We're going to have probably a farm base and our traditional base. Are they going to have different upkeep brackets based on like the TCs that are placed, or is it depending on the proximity that they're placed from one another? So what I mean by that is, let's say you have 3 bases in one grid. Are they all going to have different upkeep, or are they going to kind of contribute to one bracket, so to speak, if that makes sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That does make sense. In fact, so the more bases you have in close proximity to each other, specifically in close proximity in the same tiles or adjacent tiles, um, tiles are eventually going to become bracketed as well. That's going to be when we implement territory control. I believe I allude to that here. Did I? Yeah, I think I said that here. So basically, when territory control launches, um, we're going to make upkeep bracketed across tiles. At the moment, without territory control, because players can't own actual tiles, that's not right now. The bracketed upkeep only will apply to tool cupboards at the moment. So to be exact, so to be exact, they will apply to tool cupboards on a tool cupboard per tool cupboard basis. They won't take into account any proximity, like their proximity to each other or anything like that. It will just be kind of like if you have 1,000 building blocks on one tool cupboard, you might be in this particular upkeep bracket. Whereas if you have like 500 in adjacent tool cupboard, then you're in a different bracket. And
Okay,
then
that
they'll
makes
take into consideration like their proximity to each other. Yeah.
Yep, that makes sense. So at map overhaul launch, the brackets are going to tie directly to the TCs. Eventually, they'll tie into territory control down the
Yes.
road. Okay,
Yes, exactly.
great. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, okay. Well, if nobody had any specific questions, and don't take that as like me saying that question time is over or anything. But if nobody did have any more specific questions, then I'll kind of just like summarize these things. I'll give it like a minute for any
Right. I do have one
final
question, and
chats.
we've touched on it multiple times now, and I just wanted to be super clear. We talked about the windmills and furnaces going away, being a rare
Mhm.
drop, and now off starting a map overhaul launch, um, that solar panels will become tier based. Now, what happens to the solar panels we have now? Let's say we have a box of solar panels. Are those going to be removed and converted into some kind of compensation? Or are we able to use those, solar panels we have now in the new map update?
Yeah, so we're not going to be touching the solar panels that anyone has right now. They're just they're going to be 100% usable anywhere. They're not going to have any biome restrictions such as the new custom solar panels. Excuse me. Um, But with that said, they are going to be weaker than the new solar panels. So we, how we see it working out is how we see it working out is the current solar panels are going to be the way players get electricity in the meanwhile, because obviously we don't want to go back to like the Stone Age here
Right.
for a bit. So we're gonna let players just utilize the solar panels they currently have. And as the custom solar panels kind of enter the economy, players can just choose to replace them at will. Basically, they're all going to be better than than the current solar panels. They're just going to have more energy. You know, uh, they're just going to create more electricity, basically.
Okay, great. Yeah, I mean, I'm I'm a dedicated builder for the new server, so I have all these questions about building. So that's why I just want to get them out now, because we
Sure,
definitely
yeah.
don't
I
want to
mean,
be. We want to have
yeah,
some
I
mods and stuff.
totally understand that, and that's actually really one of the reasons why I wanted to do this live stream. I figured, people would have questions about like the new map, building on it, specific like how the transition is going to work, like certain items are going to, increase in rarity. It's going to be kind of like a culture shock in comparison to how players are used to building. So we wanted to just kind of ease that transition. That's really like one of the biggest reasons why I wanted to do this live stream, to kind of. So actually, the things that you're asking is exactly, in the vein of the purpose of the stream. So.
Mm. Cool.
Okay, so all right, well, so let's see what we got here. In this section, I basically just explain that there's a difference between client and server performance. Our dedicated machine is super strong at this point, where, as I mentioned, we could even run. Realistically, we could run another server, identical server on it. So, in other words, the hardware, it's no longer a hardware issue whatsoever. Like our previous machine, it was actually pretty decent still. It wasn't, by any means some kind of cheap machine or anything, but this machine is considerably better, and really even improving it like in the very slight way that would be possible would be it would have such diminishing returns that would just be pointless. So with that said, where we're at this point, we're trying to really rein in the performance issues that people have based on the pain points, and this is what we identify here, right? Like in descending order. And as I mentioned here, the biggest problem is big bases especially when in close proximity to each other. So like the thing is that, let's say a current very large base that players currently have, um, it would be, without being able to provide exact metrics at the moment, it would be considerably higher upkeep. And the reason for that is because um, there's two factors there which are connected to each other, which is the well, three factors actually: client performance, server performance, and economic considerations. So like the more um, the more performance and let's say the more system resources that a base takes from the server and also from a player's client performance on on a localized level where you're just like passing that base, the more we have to limit that for obvious reasons that can be illustrated by just going to the current bandit camp area, um, and that ties into also economic reasons where like um, the the more the bigger a base is, the more because it's so much more taxing for the server, um, it makes sense for us to make it kind of prohibitively expensive to have a base like that, which means that unlike other servers, which literally would just say, okay, here is your limit of how much you can build, or in my opinion, I don't know how they manage this, but a lot of other servers, and I'm not, disparaging other servers, if they can make this work, that's great for them. But a lot of other servers, they don't even have hard limits. They literally just have like 5 million admins that kind of like, on a case by case basis, judge player builds. And to me, it's like we're never gonna have the resources to do that, nor do we have the inclination to do that for the sole premise that you can't make fair assessments on a subjective basis like that. It's going to inevitably end up with like unfair treatment to one party or the other. So because of that, we're doing everything programmatically. We're doing everything in the plugin wise, which is it's a much more regulated approach where like this is just what it is, and here's what you have to work with, and players can just make their choices. So like if you want to have like a fortress, like if you want to make this like super fortress in the world, you have to realize that that's going to have a very, very high upkeep cost because it's taxing the server, it's taxing the client, and there needs to be kind of a balance there. So without like straight up making it impossible to do that, that's kind of the concept that like it's still possible, but most people are not gonna opt for that choice because of how exorbitant the cost is going to get, and it really will get quite exorbitant. Like it's not even just going to get like a little higher. It's going to get extremely high, where like you're looking at situations where client performance is going to suffer considerably. It would be extremely cost prohibitive to have a base like that. And I understand some players might just say, well, is that really the best solution? Because then you're still allowing bases which, by your own admission, are going to cause client performance issues. Well, I mean, I'm kind of like being my own devil's advocate here. But the thing is that, I mean, to be fair, when we're implementing these things, we have to be our own devil's advocate. Like we can't just like look at it from one perspective. We have to kind of look at it from every perspective that we possibly can. And in that sense, we're going to try to reach a balance where a base can have such a high entity count where, yes, it will inevitably have like a performance impact, but not so much so that it becomes like unplayable to play around there. That's kind of the like critical mass that we're going for, where the upkeep cost would be so like impossibly high, where you're reaching a point where the client performance would also be so impossibly bad that they would kind of like intersect. That's kind of the concept that we're going for, and that's going to be finalized, well, more or less finalized, when we implement territory control, because just having a huge base in one area is not nearly as significant as having multiple fortresses all near each other. Like, I can give you guys a literal, like, actual server example right now. And I apologize if you're if anyone's base
Oh boy.
is in this example. This is not like
I knew you
target,
were going there, Adun. I knew you were going there.
Called out.
not targeted at anyone. That's official disclaimer.
S24.
Rogies lights.
Rogi's not here, so we can just no one has to.
Yeah, but I can pick on him.
Too funny.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, no one mentions Rogi by name. Okay.
Oh
I
yeah,
don't.
of course
No,
not.
no one's done that. Okay. Um, but in any case, so like, whenever this finishes loading, slowly loading in fully everything. So like, as you guys can see, we have a number of bases which kind of extend from over here to here. I'll take off these snazzy. What are these called? Diving mask. Take off the snazzy diving mask. So like, let's see what my frames are right now. Oh, I'm getting like some client errors. Um, you guys can actually see my frames in the top right here. So, oh, actually, you can, right? You can see that.
Yeah, we can see it. Yep.
Yeah. So let's see, 15 FPS, whatever. I mean, I have a pretty decent rig. It's not like state of the art, but it's definitely a pretty good computer. And Um, so this kind of FPS, it's not ideal, obviously. And that's because, there's just simply a lot to render, right? Because I'm actually rendering things in front of me. I'm rendering things here. I'm rendering things behind me. Like everything that kind of like the client can render is all being kept in memory, right? So like if we kind of just move a bit, right? And we go um, over here. Um, This is military tunnels. And by the way, just so you know, military tunnels, like even, every monument has its own entity count. So it's not like monuments don't have their own entity counts or whatever. and resources are entities. So like everything counts, like everything's being rendered. Um, so like then there's also things which are moving constantly, like NPCs, which add up. So like over here, the FPS, which is still like loading things in, and the FPS is gonna kind of stabilize. So this is like around 35 FPS. Oh,
Somebody's
we
running milk
see
runs.
some PvE action going on here. I hope I didn't just call anybody out there. Um, no stream sniping going on here. But but yeah, so like ideally, if we could get like large base areas to have around like maybe 40 FPS while still being fairly large, that would be a pretty great a benchmark for rigs like mine, which are kind of like a little above average, something like that. That would be great. But yeah, I mean, we don't have a magical formula, right? The performance measures that we're taking in this post we're taking because we're just trying to make things better. We're not saying that like we're not like waving a magic wand, which is just gonna like solve everything in one go. But it's obviously a hell of a lot better than if we just didn't do anything for this new map. Like if we just allowed the new map to launch without any of this, it obviously would be considerably worse. So we're just trying to do the best we can to allow everybody to enjoy the new map experience, which is, going to be a very, very different experience. And especially as more and more new mechanics are added, we don't want performance and potentially like crashing and lag and whatever to kind of like disturb that experience. So that's why we're really, you know, um, we're doing this. I mean, not only that, but obviously like players have, commented on the performance issues constantly. So we hope that players feel like we are following up on, on their feedback, on their requests, on their pleas, on their begging. Um, uh, JK. Um, yeah, so we'll see. We'll see how it kind of goes. Like once these measures are in place, we'll see what the FPS is actually like, and we'll kind of modulate from there. Like, do we make it less strict from there? Do we make it more strict from there? Like, it's gonna be a work in progress. So, that's really what it is regarding the entity count situation. So, if nobody had any questions specifically about that, I'll kind of just move on from there.
Not that one, just about lights.
What'd you say about lights?
Oh, so the Christmas lights, the ones that require electricity, I know are like ridiculous, but the ones that don't require electricity, are those as heavy of like a drain?
So every light source of some kind,
It's
it
still
just
terrible.
well, I mean, some are more terrible, less terrible than others, certainly. We like to get the exact, I mean, like exact down to like a really like granular metric of the FPS drop. That's something that we didn't do right now because
Mhm,
we're really looking for like the broad strokes. We're trying to just
mhm,
function in broad strokes here to like cover um, the main kind of pain points, and from there we're kind of going to get more and more granular, and then we're going to have like a much better idea down to like things which impact things on like 1/8 of a frame more than something else. But the general concept is that like any kind of light source, it does affect the FPS, and we've
mhm.
kind of narrowed it down to the biggest one
I hate the
being
disco lights.
yeah, being kind of just the disco lights because they're so dynamic, right? They're just kind of all over the place. They're kind of like always moving. They're like a laser, right? So they're always moving.
Yeah.
And then and then it kind of goes from there, like searchlights, neon sign, light-esque things, and so on. So, with that said, like we are gonna try and make it so that I think I mentioned that somewhere here. We are
Mhm,
gonna try and make it so that players can still utilize them aesthetically even outside of Christmas or landmarks. Um, but yeah, we're gonna really just see how it goes because we want to like these changes are really targeted at getting the FPS kind of as in hand as possible so that players can just like play on the server without constantly feeling like bogged down by like poor performance. Which is, it sucks to kind of have all these new mechanics and, all these like elaborate mechanics and then just have poor performance all the time. It's just like not the
Mhm.
experience we're going for. So once we've kind of like Scrooged it up, so to speak, we'll kind of like anti-Scrooge and like get a little less severe on it and kind of like, I mean, or we might have to go more Scrooge. Like I won't officially say like the direction we're gonna go, but overall, our general philosophy is we want it to be as free as possible for players to express themselves, to build, to be creative, but also just keep the performance as in hand as possible as we can. And that's just kind of like going to be a work in progress. And we're going to try and be as reasonable as we can over time. Okay, deployables. Talk deployables for a little bit. As already was mentioned, windmills and large furnaces are going to become super rare. Um, and even if you do loot them, um, there's going to be a deployable upkeep. We're still determining what that upkeep is, so I won't say what that actually is because we haven't. We're still finalizing that. Um, so in addition to that, though, let's go down over here. Where is that? Yeah, over here. So okay. Um, the only deployables which are going to get an upkeep cost are industrialization deployables, and yeah. So we define industrialization as any deployables that can be used for the mass production of items and resources. And this is really necessary not only for performance, but it's also necessary for gameplay and game design perspective, because because obviously, if you can mass produce anything too easily, it's going to have virtually no scarcity and it's going to really destabilize the economy and like things like teas and potions. I mean, see, this is the thing. Like, players who love making teas and things of that nature, and like eventually we're gonna have custom cooking and things like that. I mean, it's in their interest for there to be for those items to have scarcity. Because if they don't have scarcity, nobody's gonna really care too much about it, about the exclusivity of those items and about the gameplay impact because they're just going to be commonplace, right? So everybody's going to have like unlimited access to them. But like if you eventually want to make a play style out of being like somebody who makes these like rare and powerful teas or potions or whatever, kind of like somewhat like of a alchemist play style, the scarcity of those items is what is going to permit them to be valuable and to be useful, in not only in gameplay but also in the economy. So, but that also, as I mentioned, factors into performance concerns because, like, if you have like a million planters with like which are constantly being watered, and the watering thing has an animation, obviously. So then you have like a million large furnaces, and then you have like a million um, windmills, which is like keeping all these different things going. All of that is adding up, and it's problematic. And like I've said on numerous occasions before, the reason why Phase Punch doesn't limit these things is because they know that in the worst case scenario that can only persist for a month, right? And very few servers even wipe monthly, right? Like realistically, most servers are wiping weekly, occasionally bi-weekly. The monthly wipe servers are pretty rare at this point. Um, but in the worst case scenario, it's a month. So there's really only so much you can really accumulate in a month. Like especially with vanilla rates and so on. But on our server where things can go on kind of forever, it changes the entire dynamic. It completely changes the concept of of like of how many deployables you can have, what you can mass produce, and so on and so forth. So that's the reason why the industrialization based deployables are going to have an upkeep cost, both for performance rather. Thank you, um, and also for gameplay. Okay, so let's see. I already covered the tier-based solar panels. Furnaces are going to become upgradable. So you can have much less than you really need right now, um, because they're going to have increased stack size, which is maybe one of the biggest things that allows you to have like
The
aspects.
white test generator.
I'm sorry, did someone say something? Okay. So yeah, you can simply just stack much more resources into furnaces than you currently can. So that will really help with that. Then let's see. Where did I mention? Oh, here. Yeah, right. So this is pretty important to cover. Okay. So pretty much every passive vocation, with the exception of farming, because we're not really gonna mess with farming right now too much, because farming has like a lot of client-side mechanics that we can't actually change. I mean, we can change them server side, meaning we can change how they work mechanically, but we can't change how they show up to the player in the client. So because of that, we kind of have to be careful with what we're going to do with that system. We probably will have to create our own custom UI, which just replaces the current client UI. So that's, as you can imagine, that's not an overnight process. So at the moment, we're not going to really touch farming too much in terms of the direct mechanics of how farming works. Really, farming is just going to be affected kind of like in an adjacent manner by by certain deployables related to mass production having an upkeep cost. So like if you want to have like, you know, 500 planters or whatever, nobody mentioned Rogi here. So like if you did want to do that, um, then you're going to have economic concerns in housing all that. It's not going to be as simple as just putting them all down and managing them. You're also going to have an upkeep for that. So back to this though, with the exception of farming, every passive vocation, which would be, for instance, like smelting, what else? Crafting actually technically could be seen as a passive vocation because you could theoretically go AFK and queue up, as many items as you want to queue up. So we are going to be actually changing that a little bit. We're going to make it so that, well, let me preface, I guess, by saying that one thing we kind of want to change a little bit is the fact that macroing. Right now, you can kind of macro certain things, and we want to kind of move away from that a little bit. But with crafting, in particular, you can queue up a million things and then kind of go AFK. But we are going to be changing that where you're going to be able to queue up less things, but they're going to craft. I mean, they already craft pretty fast, and you're going to be able to speed that up even further. But essentially, you're going to be able to queue up less things than you currently can. But you are going to be able to through the RPG system increase that amount. So like let's say you're a craft, like you're trying to craft things, but you're not particularly specialized into crafting, you're gonna have to do it a lot more actively than right now. And I'll kind of cover that. I don't want to get too much into that, especially because we're still finalizing a number of the specifics regarding that. But that is going to be affected. Then, more importantly, though, is something like smelting, right? Because smelting has to do with upgradable furnaces. It has to do with industrialization upkeep. It has to do with large furnace rarity. So the way furnaces are going to work, basically, you're going to be able to put in a lot less than you currently can into a furnace, but your smelting result is going to happen much, much, much faster. That was 3 muches for emphasis. So that's going to mean like you're just going to, the gameplay behind that means that you're going to basically going to be putting in um, resources more commonly, and you're going to be retrieving resources more commonly. Um, and that's going to create the kind of active gameplay, even with smelting, even with refining type playstyles that we're going to be going for. So that means like if you have a lot to smelt, you will be able to smelt it much quicker, and you're not going to have to like wait the whole night. You're not going to have to wait the whole day. So, you are going to be able to get your results much quicker, but you are going to have to be like actively smelting, like quote, actively smelting. So that's how that's going to work. So, okay. Let's see. I think we covered most things. So we have level-based TC limits. I mean, this is pretty self-explanatory. You pretty much just unlock TCs as you level. Pretty self-explanatory. Yeah, I think that's most things. So what I'll do is I'll just take questions regarding anything that anybody would like to have explained or elaborated upon, or even miscellaneous questions, and then we'll kind of wrap up the stream and get back to
I,
the grind.
I haven't been here the whole time. I've had to like do chores and stuff, so I may have missed a lot.
Yeah, no problem.
And I know you are hesitant to give an exact date, especially, but do you have an estimate for when this is going live, the map?
Yeah, so I did mention this a little earlier. To sum it up, we're trying to get this out just as soon as we possibly can. The last thing we want to do is delay this. It's certainly like there's nothing that we gain. I'll put it that way. There's nothing that we gain by delaying this. The only thing that happens when we delay this is obviously people get more, kind of, understandably frustrated.
Right, but you want it to be good. You don't want it to be
Right.
worse. Yeah.
Of course.
So
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that is the reason that we're delaying it, right? That's the only
right.
reason that we're extending it. Just like, and we're not even trying to like add additional features. We probably will even end up dropping a few of the more minor features and then add them in like shortly after the map overhaul launch, because that we just want to expedite things as much as we possibly can. So with that said, the unofficial date I gave, and this is unofficial, it really is not an official date. We are trying to get this out like towards the end of February, or optimally for March's forced wipe, which would be I think March uh,
3rd.
3rd. Yeah, March 3rd. So that would be great, and I truly think that is like pretty realistic, but I still will not make that an official date.
Right.
I certainly don't want like good Lord, I certainly do not want it to go longer than that. Like I do not like I want this to be out as soon as we possibly can. It just depends on how long it will take us to get these to get all this in. Like without this, things were pretty advanced and things were pretty close to launching. But with all this, it's just it has obviously elongated things, and we're doing that because we want when people finally get to play on the map, the new map and the new server experience, because it's not just a new map, it's obviously like it's so many new mechanics that it's something like probably like 20 times the size of like the war declarations patch, like something like that. It's like it's a truly enormous patch. It's practically like a server expansion at this point. um, so when that finally happens, we want people to have as smooth an experience as possible. And as I also mentioned, the other reason is that some of these things really would only make sense to actually implement with a new map, because like we can't really just make windmills rare after a new map has launched, because we would have to essentially like wipe the current windmills that would be on the map, and that's
Uh huh.
that's not a fun experience for anyone. We definitely never want to wipe anyone's items. That doesn't go with our theme of never wiping server. So there's a difference between as we're transitioning maps with like entirely different rarity mechanics and very selectively we do something like, as I said earlier, we're going to be replacing all current windmills and large furnaces with certain compensated items. So in that sense, players will be compensated for the loss of those current items. And the reason for that is because, as I said earlier, large furnaces and windmills, as mentioned right here, um, they're just going to be much more rare than the currently are, rather.
Right. Yeah, I heard that part earlier. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. I was just wondering. I have a lot of friends that don't really want to come back until the map change happens,
Mhm.
and so I'm trying to keep them informed on when they can expect that. I expect for myself, since you said late February, early March, I'll probably be playing Elden Ring a lot, so I don't know
Well, there you go. That sounds
if
like a
I'll
good
be
use.
there immediately. So we'll see.
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, like I really, even though it's unofficial, I really do hope March 3rd. Yeah, March 3rd.
Okay.
I really hope March 3rd would be the day, especially because that would be convenient for us because
Hmm.
we don't have to do a map restoration then, which always takes a bunch of time. So that would be great. And as I've said before, I do think that that's realistic. But nonetheless, at this point, I'm not going to give official dates anymore just because, they end up not happening and that makes people even more frustrated. So it's counterproductive for everyone. But unofficially, yeah, that's what we were going for. Yeah.
Also, real quickly, I guess like assuming we have multiple bases, all of that will be stored, other than maybe the windmills and things that can't be deployed now.
Yes. So, okay. For anybody, yeah, I actually kind of wish I covered this earlier. So, for anyone, wondering how that's going to work. Well, this isn't like, well, this isn't 100% comprehensive. Right here at the top, under current map, new map, it explains how that's going to work. Like, in short, everything is going to carry over besides mounts. I actually might not have mentioned mounts here. I said we're in the final. Yeah, I need to update this line. But basically, everything is going to carry over besides mounts, and that's because mounts have entirely different rarities, and not only just different rarities, like they have entirely different mechanics, like in terms of how they're acquired. So mounts, but not only that, mounts are not an actual item, so that's the other reason. So other than mounts, every single thing that players have, literally every single thing is going to carry over. Your vaults, your contents of your vaults, your contents of every box you have, every deployable you've placed, every resource in your tool cupboard, every resource used to make a base, every base, everything in your inventory, so on and so forth. It's all going to carry over.
Dune, just some clarity around that, given because we've looked at this exact explanation. So,
Yeah.
for instance, let's use the example of our clan base. Will everything in the clan base go to the member who placed the TC, or will it be like, for instance, the storage chest, whoever placed the storage chest, like which supersedes the other?
Yeah, I would have to double check. I'm 99% sure that yeah, I'm kind of mentally juggling so many things that sometimes I have to like double check the things that I already know. But um, it's gonna be based on the owner of the chest of the box. So because the reason for that is because like somebody who placed a TC, that's just one person, you know? So we don't want to bottleneck all the items into just one person. We want
Right.
we want items to go basically to the person who owns that particular box because that's kind of a proof of ownership, so to speak. So therefore, like, all the boxes that you've placed and everything you've put in them, you're gonna personally get all of those items. Whereas if it was based on who placed the TC, just one person would get everything, which would be messy, which would be inconvenient, which would be, potentially problematic. Like someone might not be playing at that exact time, clan priorities might have shifted, and so on and so forth. Um, I mean, admittedly, even making it based on per box, of course, it's still going to be a little messy because, not every item you've put in every box. It's not like everyone keeps track of every box, who placed what and who put everything in what. So yeah, there is going to inevitably be, like a little bit of mess involved with that. But essentially, yes, it is going to be based on box ownership and the items that are put in there.
Perfect. Thank you for the clarity.
Oh, in fact, on that subject, and yeah, I kind of, once again, I wish I brought this up earlier when we had a little more people in the stream, but basically how that's going to actually work, because a lot of people have asked, and I am actually planning to update this section with this information. We've kind of expanded on the system in terms of how players are going to actually get their items back. It's still going to be command-based, so you are going to use the commands similar to contraband reclaim command, and you're going to, like, inventory per inventory at a time, you're going to get your items back. But what we did for the convenience of players, and for accuracy and whatever, we're going to allow players to use the command with a specific item, and you're going to get kind of a certain amount of that item at a time. So, like, if you want specific resources, if you want specific items, like first, you can prioritize that in any way you see fit as an individual player. So an example, to give an example of that, like, let's say you specifically wanted stone, like when you, or let's say wood, right? When you spawn the map. So you would type /collect wood, just kidding. You would type / whatever the command is, and wood, and I think we made it based on wood that was in a particular box. So it's not like you're going to get all the wood at one time. You're going to get like a certain cluster. And then you can like use that to obviously make twig and make your outline for your base, things of that nature. And then if you, let's say you want, like, let's say you're satisfied with building for a while and you want to start getting like your gear sets, you can type the command and like AK or whatever, and you're going to get your AKs and your ammo. So we've made it targeted, and we've also made it generalistic. Like if you don't care about the order, it's going to just start giving you your stuff back, inventory per inventory. If you do care about the order, you can isolate specifically what you want to get. So that's kind of the development we've made with that.
I might have a question based around that a little bit. As far as the storage boxes themselves, this might have been mentioned in an early stream or on the Discord. If you have, your upgraded boxes per se, like your tier 4 boxes, are you going to be able to prioritize getting those versus like the non upgraded boxes or such? I mean, I know it's kind of specific, but that kind of stuff.
I will double check with Tacti about that if we can make that happen. That does make sense that people would rather get their upgraded boxes first. So that's pretty reasonable. I will see if we can make that a reality. At the moment, I don't believe we factored that in. But I will see if we can.
Okay, cool.
Well, you said something about a scrap insurance system before. Will that be coming out when the map overall happens?
The scrap insurance system. Okay, so I believe that was mentioned in here. So this stuff, let me take a quick look at it. Yeah, okay. This stuff, well, actually, this is going to be implemented. This is going to be implemented. this is going to be implemented. But other than a couple of these things are major systems. So these are not going to be implemented with the map overhaul. Basically, everything that's going to come with the map overhaul is in here, although some of these things have changed a little bit. Not much, but just a little bit. For example, like that's not a thing anymore. That's not a thing anymore. That's not a thing anymore. Yeah, a couple of the monument-based things have changed, but like 90% of this has not changed. Then obviously everything that's written in here is going to make it. And then everything obviously in here is going to make it. And then there's going to be other things we haven't mentioned, which are going to be, we may still just mention them before the launch happens. But yeah, other than that, I mean, as I said earlier, like even that's already like 20 times the size of any major patch we've already done. So it's already like a truly enormous amount of things that are going to be making it in. So like we do have to stop somewhere, but things like this they of course will make it in later. We really are happy to get. We would love to get this out as soon as possible. We might get this out with the custom item system, with the custom item patch. In other words, the patch which releases custom-based weapons, tool, armor, and attire, because that would be that would work well with that. So that people can like, if they get really valuable custom items that they like the statistics on, they can insure them. So there's a good chance it will come with that patch, but that's still unofficial. But yeah, it won't be with the map overhaul. But yeah, so if anyone had any other questions regarding the performance stuff or just even general questions, please feel free, and then we'll kind of wrap things up.
I have one more if it's not too much. Could you let us know about the custom tannery monument, and I think there's some others as well, right? Farming one as well.
Sure. So okay, this was in the original stream. Basically, all of them essentially work the same way. All of the open world refining and crafting and like you could call them like vocation monuments. They all work the same way in the regard that they are controlled by NPC factions that you can let's see if I can find one that you can. This is actually the pump jack one. This actually wasn't. I kind of recently added this. Basically, you go to this monument. You fight the NPC faction. They drop certain custom items, and if you fully clear them out, you can use this open world pump jack, or let's say a tannery, or like a farm, and you can do advanced open world crafting or refining at those monuments. So like as opposed to farming in your base, you can go to the farming monument and you can get like specific like empowered clones or items that will affect farming, things of that nature. It's kind of a way for us to further make passive play styles as active as possible, because we're really trying to give every single, like literally, like quite literally every single play style that is inclined to just sit in their base a way to also get out into the world to kind of in the concept of risk versus reward to kind of improve their crafting or gathering or refining, um, and also to kind of actually work with other players. Because as I mentioned, like when we implement the skill system and the updated attribute system, players are going to be so highly specialized that it would be unlikely for you to be a farmer but also to be a fighter on the same implant. So what that would mean is like you could group up with somebody who is a fighter or you could hire them or befriend them or whatever, what have you. And you would then venture out to the monument and they would clear it for you, or you would help them, with whatever you could manage. And then you could do your open world farming like boost over there. And that's kind of how that would work.
Do we have
Yeah.
multiple of these in each tier,
So the
or
way
is
it
it just
works,
one and tier 3?
yeah. So the way it works is certain monuments are actually in every tier, or I should say certain sub-monuments. They're in every tier in every biome. Only a few are like that, like the supermarkets, which are no longer a tier 0 tutorial area monument. They're actually just a small monument that you can get food at. They're kind of a way, because we're no longer going to have like food all over the ground at monuments. That whole thing is different now. So you would kind of go to a supermarket if you wanted like to rate it for well, quote rate it for food. But other than that, most monuments exist one per tier, and that is definitely true of the vocation monuments. So different tiers and biomes have different vocation monuments. Um, and that kind of just differs as the map expands into tier, into tier 3 and tier 4. Well, not tier 4 because tier 4 has no landmass. But yeah, so what that would mean is, naturally speaking, that would aid in the localization that we're going for, where like if you live in the tier 3 temperate, you have certain localized advantages for the type of play style that you like, or that you like even temporarily want to live in this area to kind of like pursue that play style. Because as I mentioned, homes are now localized. You can only respawn 200 meters from where you died. So where you live in the world is very important with the map overhaul. So yeah, where you live in the world will matter a lot, and you kind of really will want to like venture out into the world to explore where different things are based on the play style that you want to go after, because you will have very considerably varying options based on where you live. It's not going to feel homogenous at all.
Thank you.
Yep. What was I? Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So, anyone else? Cool. Well, all right. I think we covered a lot of important things. Um, I hope people are more on the same page um, with where things stand, and why we had to extend the date again, which, as I really cannot emphasize enough, it's the last thing we ever want to do. But this over here, I'm probably gonna just change to say end of February or March 3rd as like an unofficial date, just so people have something to kind of go off of. Um, Other than that, we're pretty much working on this every single day. Like realistically speaking, we're working on this every single day. So we are trying to get this done as soon as we possibly can. At this point, we just have to really finalize the performance stuff, get all that in, finish testing everything, and we should be good to go. And we'll keep everyone updated on our progress and dev updates. We'll keep everyone updated with new information in the map overhaul area. We'll continue to take questions, obviously. I actually have a backlog of questions I need to respond to in the Discord, which I will do hopefully today. Oh, looks like I'm freezing here. Can you guys still hear me?
Yep,
Yep.
I can still hear you. Yep.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Not sure why this is frozen. Oh, there we go. Cool. Yeah. So yeah, that's really the gist of it. Okay. So like I said, if anyone has any final questions, please voice them. If not, we'll end here.
Have you seen any winners from the custom item ideas channel yet?
I'm sorry. Could you repeat that? I heard custom item channel.
Have you seen any suggestions that might be making it into the game from the custom items ideas? the channel.
Yeah. So there's a lot of really cool, things that people have suggested. Um, I won't get too much into that right now, so that we don't get even more ahead of ourselves than we already are. But I will say that, as I kind of mentioned somewhere here, I believe that custom items, like we're really gonna take the concept of custom items very far. Custom items, like that's really one thing. Like while most mechanics on the server are gonna be kind of finite, custom items are gonna go on kind of forever. Like it's something that we're gonna just add to the economy just for the forever, really, because we want to make the economy as dynamic as possible, always evolving, always giving players more options to work with, new gameplay choices, new mechanics, new new items that work in tandem with new RPG mechanics. So like even once we feel ourselves to be quote feature complete, which is like a long time from now, to be fair, like not to to kind of manage expectations, let's say that's pretty far from now. But even if we got to that point, adding new things to the RPG system and new custom items are two things that will play off each other and are going to be like a perpetual thing that we're going to be adding, because it just expands what's possible with the server, and we want to really make the server like this super dynamic, super original feeling experience that taps into like every possibility. And like to more specifically answer your question, a lot of people have posted some really great ideas. Some of these I won't mention what, we already more or less kind of had planned. But yeah, I will say that things of this nature, they will eventually make it in, and and a lot more. And we hope players keep posting their ideas, even if they're kind of like, like even if they're simple or they're outlandish or whatever. We love to
You can say lame. You can call our ideas lame.
that, that's
No,
the
I'm
thing.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I know, but I really like, I really do mean that. Like by outlandish, I kind of just mean as off the walls as some of them could be. That's actually great because who knows what mechanics we could actually make a reality. Like there's certain things that may be limited by Rust itself, but Rust does allow quite a lot. Like even though Rust has certain limitations, most of the limitations we can bypass. Some we can't, obviously, but there's just a lot we can do. Even the manipulation of prefabs, and prefabs are just kind of like things that exist. Like a rock would be a prefab, right? Like this would be a prefab list, right? Uh, like point being is there's like a million things which are prefabs. So these can be manipulated in all kinds of ways. The difference is though, prefabs, which are also entities, are things that can be spawned into the game world. And those things, those prefabs in particular, can be manipulated in ways that we can do highly custom things with. We can make all kinds of like weird items that like you wouldn't imagine would be possible. Like you could, like add-ons to like modular cars.
I was gonna
To
say, can we have a water tanker that can put out the helicopter fire faster? Like drive up with a tank full of water and like shoot down the helicopter and like tanker full of water, put it out. You're able to like loot and harvest a heli and like instead of 10 minutes, you can get it in 5 or something.
Yeah, I mean, what you just said is actually a great example of what is possible. That would be possible, yes.
Perfect. That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, things like that. It's really like the idea is like every mechanic that exists will eventually become incorporated in some custom manner. Um, and it will be incorporated in custom items, custom crafting, because eventually we're actually not going to use like this system right here. This system will eventually be disabled, because we're no longer like vanilla Rust items. are just going to be the base of custom items. So if a player like presses Q, because we can't prevent players from pressing Q or whatever, it's just going to bring up a pop-up which says that this is not our crafting UI anymore, and it will refer them to the real crafting UI. And yeah, from there it will just be all custom items with custom resource costs, etc., etc. And that's kind of the future of the server. So that's why, like, right now we're very happy to get the overhaul out as soon as we can, because like it really sets the stage for us moving further in the direction of custom items and custom mechanics and the RPG overhaul. Because like our current map is just far too limited. It's far too small, far too limited for what we're trying to accomplish, and it ended up becoming the bottleneck, um, like the severe bottleneck from launching other things that we wanted to do. So that's why once we kind of cross this milestone, we're kind of just going to go full stream ahead there. Yeah.
I had a question on custom items. So
Yeah.
ultimately, long-term vision on custom items, is it going to be custom to the server or is it going to be custom to the player? So for example, in
Yeah.
a little teapot's example of drugs, right? Are you going to get to design the drug that then can be made in game, or is the player going to get to design a drug that can be made in game and like that consumes specific raw materials and has a specific outcome? Like, who is the custom aspect of those items?
Right. Okay. So that's actually that's an interesting question, really, because that requires one of those disclaimers, like my 10-hour response disclaimers. But the super summarized version of that is the custom crafting is going to have kind of like a long evolution to it, in the sense that it's going to have many stages. The first stage of custom crafting is going to be the way for us to get out, to kind of divorce ourselves from this system, where right now we just have to use we have to use Rust's crafting costs, which is like a huge bummer, and that's a huge bottleneck for us. So once we implement custom resources, which will come with the custom crafting system, um, that's going to allow us to set any crafting cost we want. If we want something to cost 5,000 kryptonite, we can do that, right? So once we pass that milestone, that's kind of the first iteration of custom crafting. From there, the system is going to expand a lot, where it's going to become more and more kind of ambiguous, because the first version is going to be where like you have a crafting UI where what in one form or another you see the crafting costs, right? Similar to this, where it's like whatever, this tells you the crafting cost, and then you just
Yeah.
press the craft button. It's super straightforward, right? But that's not really too interesting for us, and not really like satisfying for what we want to do. We eventually will make that a lot more mysterious, where crafting playstyles will require players to unlock certain recipes and also kind of create their own recipes. Like, because we don't like. Okay, I should kind of like clarify that a little bit. So ultimately, the recipes that will be possible, they have to be limited in some manner. So what's possible will be limited in what we create in terms of systems to regulate what's possible. But within what is possible, that system is going to like massively expand, and it's also going to become much more ambiguous. So like a player would be able to create a bow, let's say, to use a bow as an example, um, where like depending on the type of like drawstring you used, or type of like whatever, like wood you used, or things, or things of that nature that go into creating a bow. Same thing with a gun, like the different components that go into making a gun. You can kind of modulate that recipe, and you can like custom tailor that recipe to your liking. And crafters are going to be able to create kind of like trademarked recipes that they've kind of come up with themselves. And it won't be nearly as straightforward as just like, here is here is a binary recipe that just like is automatically presented to you, and you just press the craft button. It's going to be a lot more kind of like unlocking things and discovering things and experimenting with things, and things of that nature. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Oh, and I should say that in case anybody was wondering, how that might apply to other things such as like cooking, because technically cooking it could be seen as a craft, right? It that will apply pretty much to every craft. Like this is not just weaponsmithing or armor smithing; it's for everything. Like cooking, um, you know, alchemy, aka mixing, tea making, whatever, farming, whatever the case may be. It will all be it will all eventually become a system like that, where the players will be able to like discover a lot of their own recipes through their own experimentation.
So we can grow different strains of marijuana. Yep.
AKA, yeah. But, if you took anything from that, it's that, yeah.
No, you guys are doing a hell of a fucking good job. I'm excited to see where it's gonna take us.
Well, we always appreciate that, and look, we can't really say it enough. We appreciate everyone's pretty extreme patience with us at this point. This was supposed to ideally have launched in expansion form like over a month ago. So we understand, that things have worked out a little differently, but it really is greatly for the better. And not only will, the features have become a lot more polished and expanded upon, but they'll just be a lot more playable and reliable, with the performance stuff also in. Because like if we didn't do this now, like even though things are going to be drastically spaced out because of the size of the map, that really wouldn't be enough of a deterrent to prevent performance from kind of getting bad like pretty quickly again. So yeah, we kind of just have come to see these changes as essential. So that's why we decided to do this now. That's why we understand, it's not the most easy thing to deal with, having to deal with multiple delays, but yeah, we do see it as essential, and we hope players will, appreciate the performance difference in the long run and have a much more sustainable, enjoyable, and therefore enjoyable experience. When it actually launches.
Patience is a virtue.
Yeah. I mean, we but nonetheless, while that might be true, we definitely appreciate it, and we'll definitely keep people as updated as we can, and we do hope to get it out just as soon as we possibly can. So that's a constant. That while we can't give an official date, that is a constant philosophy we have. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, if anybody has any final questions, please voice them. Otherwise, we'll end this up and go from there. Cool. Well, looks like we're all infoed out. So, okay. Thank you, everyone. For coming to the second developer live stream. And I did try to record this one as well. The last one I tried to record, but I actually ran out of space midway because it ended up going like 3 times as long as I thought it would. But we got rescued by Izonic. So, yeah, I will try to post this as well. And
I've been asking and I didn't realize that I was muted. So will there be like new custom monuments or like any like other stuff beside like the new map?
oh, you mean in the new? Will there be custom monuments in the new map
Yeah,
overhaul?
yeah.
Well, I mean, to answer that in a couple words, I mean, like pretty much everything is custom. There's like, there's really like like we have a couple vanilla Rust monuments left in here, but
Just
It's gonna
going
be
to
a
tell you something.
whole different game, man.
Okay, I'm
yeah,
just going to tell you something if you didn't know about it. I don't know if it's allowed or not, but I'm just going to say it anyway. So you know the junkyard, like big fat recycler, that recycle cars.
Mhm.
Is it normal to give you like the 50 scrap and 50 metal, or are you going to nerf it?
50 scrap and 50
Metal,
HQM, you mean? Or
metal,
like metal
ferrets.
fragments?
Yeah.
Ah,
But it
um,
gives HKM. It gives HKM for the other cars.
right,
I don't
right.
know how much, but like,
Well, that's a good question. We actually we haven't really focused too much on the shredder. When I was looking into it originally, it seemed like the costs were actually kind of low, if anything. So I might be wrong about that. So
like
if
the cars spawn super fast there, but like it's like the cars that are not rifleable. But like there's like cars that the cars that like you put car parts in them give you high quality when you recycle use that.
Mhm.
I don't know how much, but like the cars spawn rarely anyway. But like still, you can get like 1,000 scrap if you use like 2K low grade. Like the thing is, the machine that uses that requires you like a lot of low grade. It eats your low grade really fast. I just want to know if it's balanced or like anything we're going to change or no. Just that's what I want to know.
Sure, sure. Okay, you know what? If you could do me a favor and send me a message on Discord, with kind of like the more full details of like exactly what you mean, because I'm not 100% sure I know exactly, like, and I mean like specifically which item, which car, which rate, and so on and so forth. So
Hmm.
just for the sake of clarity, if you could send me a message on Discord with that information, I really appreciate you taking the time to do that. We will take a further look at it. I will briefly say that on the new map, acquiring cars is going to be like very different and much, much more rare. So shredding cars on the new map.
No, like there's like if you're going to keep the junkyard, there's like these white cars that spawn and like they give you this 50 scrap, but the other cars give you more.
Uh, One
I
second.
will I will send you like a YouTube video on it. I'll be sending you like junkyard, yes.
Yeah, one second. So okay.
So
So
in
this
the
is
middle,
yeah,
you
yeah,
see the yellow thing, the yellow
yeah.
thing.
The
That's
shredder.
what it's. This is what's used to pick up like there's like white cars around the area. You use it to pick it up white cars like there's like one in front of you
Yeah, yeah.
next to the scientist, and then you put it shredder and boom, 350
Okay.
scrap,
Gotcha. Okay, okay. Yeah, we
and they
will. Okay.
spawn really fast.
Right. Okay. I see. Okay. Now I understand what you're saying. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. We will examine that. Yeah. That's different from actual modular cars. Okay. So we'll take a look at that. We haven't really, when this got implemented a couple months ago or whenever Facepunch changed the junkyard, we haven't really
Looked
like,
into it.
yeah, we haven't really looked into it too much. We kind of just did a preliminary look at what you could get, and it seemed okay. We could absolutely be wrong about that. So yeah. Uh, Now that you bring it to our attention, I will personally be looking into that. Yeah.
I don't know why, but like sure, I just like last time like for whatever reason when I do like simple stuff, I get banned for no reason in any server. I just do the stupid stuff and like I just get banned in like magically, when I abuse something. So I decided to ask before something goes wrong. You know?
That's probably, yeah, that's a pretty good policy, and we definitely appreciate you doing that. That's Yeah, I mean, better safe than sorry, and it would suck to get banned from our server because our server has RPG progression, obviously, which takes a lot of time. Um, with that said, we don't really ban, we're not like really trigger happy with the bans, but we obviously would ban if we saw somebody exploiting something like
Mhm.
blatantly, and they didn't bring it to our attention. So yeah, always a good policy. Just to double check with us. You really don't
Mhm.
lose anything by doing that. So yeah.
Okay, so the other thing, will you add like extended mags for like other guns?
So changing the mag size is actually something we've been researching, and I will say that it's on the table. There's some weird mechanics involved with that that have to do with like recoil changing. It's some like weird Rust mechanic thing. So
So you're telling me that you like when increasing the mag, not only you have to like increase the like the bullet size, but also set the recoil pattern. You mean?
uh,
Okay,
well,
now.
not exactly. To be more specific, there's some weird technical Rust mechanics involved with changing mag size that we encountered that kind of start to affect general recoil, like the recoil statistic, like that exists for guns. So it's not really as simple as just increasing that. We actually already managed to do that for firing ranges. We already implemented that mechanic, but for doing that for the main game, like not a mini game, like not for this mini game over here, um, that's kind of a different story. So
Mm,
it's yeah, we're researching it. It's on the table. So we'll see how much of a reality we can make it. Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Well, when you started asking the questions, I was pretty much wrapping it up. So I'll just continue with that. Once again, I'm always happy to double check if anyone had any final questions. If not, I just wanted to once again thank everyone for coming, and I will try and post this on YouTube, so that anyone who couldn't make it or didn't watch all of it can still see it. And yeah, this will be a pretty, fairly regular occurrence. And I do want to interface with the community as much as possible in this setting. So yeah, once again, thank you everyone. And if there's no final questions, I'll see you out there on the server.
Thanks, Adun.
There you go. Make sure to hide from me, or else you get raided.
Got to
Sounds
declare
good.
war first.
Thanks,
Yes.
Adun. Thanks,
I
Tactic,
don't
for all
need
your
to.
guys'
I'm
work.
just going to uh, code read.
Yeah, that
I
that
mean,
might not be a thing as well, but that's a different
I
story.
mean, Rust fixed it already. Like Rust made it where like every
Yeah.
time you fail 8 times,
Right.
you have to wait 15 minutes.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. They fixed it themselves. I think that was yeah, that was pretty recent. One or two updates ago. Yeah.
I mean,
So,
there's still a way, so it doesn't mean that it will stop me.
well, we might just have to step in a bit because we don't really want. I mean, if we went through all the trouble of making the war declaration system, we don't really want code rating to be a thing. So,
You
we'll
don't
see.
want what?
We don't really want code rating to be a thing.
Mhm.
Too. So we will. Well, I don't want to get too ahead of myself, but yeah, we do have other systems involved that are kind of related to that, but yeah, that's not anytime soon. So
The last question, and this is
sure,
this time the last.
sure.
Uh, are case bases like you made them, or is it like random designs that you bought that you found on the internet?
So chaos bases are interesting because basically the most popular plugin out there, it's on tons of servers called raidable NPC bases or whatever. So we didn't want to just create a system like that and use that plugin. I mean, we really don't want to use anyone's plugins, like if we can help it. We still have some third-party plugins, which we've modified. But so we created our own completely from scratch raidable base system, which has a custom mechanic of capture and holding and lawless versus lawful, whatever. The actual bases in there, those are sourced at the moment from different sources that you might find in the more classical rateable basis plugin. But that's kind of a temporary measure because we don't want to like
Like
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
the thing is, someone can just like go on a server and then train, and then they will just know the weaknesses of every single base. Like I know every readable base in the book.
Yeah, exactly. So um, long story short, while that might be possible right now, technically you don't even need to go to a server to train that because the bases at the moment are all like a fortress is a fortress. It's always the same fortress at the moment. That wasn't our intention though. We actually had like 30 different fortresses, 30 different bastions, and so on and so forth. However, there was some problems with that. It ended up being a thing where like we didn't want to spend much more development time on it because we had bigger priorities. Eventually, there will be many, many different kinds of of bases per type, and not only that, but the TC is actually going to move even in the same type. Although we will indicate to players if the TC is in a different place because we don't want it to be random. Like we don't want it to be an arbitrary thing where like players have to just blow up an entire base just based
Mhm.
on RNG because that's not really a fun mechanic. And not only that, but you end up losing. You might end up being in like a net loss if you have to spend like a million C4 or rockets to get the items in EXP. So we are going to make it more skill based, where it's like the player is going to have to kind of like determine what type of base it is, and there's going to be certain indications where the TC is. That's our ultimate goal, to make it skill
So
based.
you're telling me that you're going to make like something like a random build generator, pretty much.
I'm sorry, repeat that.
Like a random thing where the server makes like a random base by its own, not loading like an old base of a place, you know.
Oh,
No,
the system is good. Well, I mean, I won't. I guess I won't reveal our tricks, shall I say? But it will be a system that uses a very big pool of possibilities for chaos bases, and it will be skill based. Ultimately, in the end, where you could determine where the TC is. Like I can
okay.
kind of just simplify it, but like with that, really.
Mhm. Okay.
Yeah, at the moment, it's kind of just like a temporary setup where like every fortress is the same fortress, but that's not our ultimate goal. We just have
Like
bigger priorities.
stuff will be at different places. This is what you're this is what you're saying. It's like a maze that changes
Sure,
every
yeah.
time.
Yeah, you could look at it like that. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, got it.
All right, guys. Well, I'll let you go. Again, thank you again, and I'll see you out there on the server. And don't you worry, I'll continue the wall of texts. I'll keep them coming as necessary. And thanks again. I'll see you around.
Just make sure to add the max. This is what's important right now.
Yeah,
Thanks, Adun. Appreciate it.
of course. Sure. See you guys.
Yep.
So
Take
yeah.
care.